if you're the first video, I just wipe my tongue. It shouldn't be awkward. I could press like delete and not put this up, but you'd miss that moment. I mean, this is real-time recording. Again, we're in the context of the Owen Farrell tackle versus the George Moala tackle, or the George Moala tackle versus the Owen Farrell tackle, and what these mean. And I want to think larger, bigger picture, and not just directly about these tackles, but what these tackles, or how these tackles should inform how we think about the future of rugby union and how we deal with foul play. Is the system we have of weeks the best way to deal with foul play? And do we need to think more intimately or more contextually about how we hand down punishments? And my thinking is that the Rugby World Cup is such in the rugby calendar, and again, who knows what will happen in the future with the new calendar and every 2 years, but the Rugby World Cup is such that it's not just a test match, it is up here, it is the pinnacle. And I think that players should be treated with a certain level of respect in light of that who are playing test rugby. And maybe that's not necessarily the most effective way of framing it, but what I'm saying is that the consequences that happen in other test matches should apply to other test matches, not to the Rugby World Cup, because that is different. That is a different platform. That should have different types of consequences. Now, if something happens in a Rugby World Cup, maybe, therefore, it affects what happens in a Rugby World Cup. But when it doesn't happen in a Rugby World Cup, then the consequences should relate to what doesn't happen in a Rugby World Cup. In other words, I would ring fence the Rugby World Cup in some way. So that would be probably like point number one. I'm ring fencing the Rugby World Cup so that foul play or consequences outside of a Rugby World Cup don't affect a Rugby World Cup. Two, I'm thinking about the weeks. Is weeks the best way to hand down a judgment? I mean, is it not better matches and what that could mean? Or what about financial types of consequences? We're a professional code, and I think that in terms of test matches, then who receives the consequences for foul play, like in a test match? I mean, I think that's probably the stronger argument for a red card being whenever it applies. Personally, I think the 20-minute red card is still effective in terms of being consequences for a side, but doesn't necessarily prove definitive over the 80 minutes. But if you want to make an argument for the consequences relating to the team that's been affected, then a red card, no matter where it happens, is much more impacting. I mean, if a person is not red carded, say Owen Farrell, for example, and he receives a yellow card, but afterwards, the judiciary with historic context says, well, that's red card, that's the threshold, and therefore you receive X amount of weeks, then the team that's been affected by that in the game hasn't received any type of benefit. I mean, it's interesting how we deal with consequences. Consequences, just generally in life, they often don't directly relate to the person or the party that's been offended. The person who's doing the offending may receive those consequences, but the person that's been offended hasn't. And so in this way, a card system in the game, a more effective card system, and I do like the automatic yellow or the yellow and then the more time to reflect. I think that's good. But if we're stronger on the cards in the game when the offence happened, and then less so much about, and that maybe lessens how we deal or changes the trajectory of how we deal with post-game consequences. And I think that other codes use it in terms of the financial consequences. And I think that in terms of moving forward, then rugby should head in that direction more so, and consider how that still impacts the person. I mean, they don't want to lose X amount of dollars, thousands of dollars. So the team gets impacted in the game that's been offended because the player's gone. And hopefully that didn't come up in the video, but I've been just being informed my battery's running out. How helpful is that? And also the players receiving the consequences because their pocket bottom line, they're losing 10 grand or whatever, 5k, and that's going to pay. I think that's a lot tidier, and I think that's a lot that also honours the Rugby World Cup or honours Test matches. It doesn't cost the fan in terms of a spectacle. You want to see the best players playing Test rugby. Yes, they should bear the consequences for their foul play or their indiscretions, but bear it in such a way that not only directly intersects with the team that's being offended, but also costs them without it casting such an undue shadow over Test rugby. Now, throwing out ideas there, what do you think? I may do this video again because we got interrupted. What do you think about that type of reality? Is World Rugby, or are they handling it the best way? Should we have a new system, a new metric, a new way of deciding on what should be the consequences for foul play in a Test match, and what should those be? Offer your suggestion. Do you like some of my ideas, or are you thinking that Kiwi is a fool? Not only does he wear weird scarves, but he talks a lot of miscellaneous bish-bash rubbish. Well, that's your opinion, and you're allowed to share it in the comment section. Like and share this post, and subscribe if you haven't already. And I look forward to reading and engaging with the wisdom of the rugby world on this YouTube channel. And if I don't record this again, then I hope you enjoyed that little blip if it interrupted, because it just provided that je ne sais quoi. There's an I don't know moment. I mean, who would leave that in there? Certainly not someone who's looking to be really professional. Oh, the amateur days, they were so special. Bringing it back. I am Johnny King.